Since it was revealed to the world in 1979, the Xenomorph from Alien has captured the curiosity of audiences. Every aspect of the creature has been an enigma, rife for theories and analysis, from its terrifying jaws to the very tip of its tail. And that tail indeed is something worth taking a closer look at. You may recall the Alien Official Movie magazine, published in December of the film's release year, had its own theories of this piece of the alien's biology. In the article, Could the Alien Really Exist?, the argument is made that the purpose of the alien's tail is for communication. Richard Myers writes, "Although the tail might be useful to the creature as a third hand, a powerful tentacle of sorts, it probably serves a more vital function. Besides, if it were a hand, the alien would have used it to check its forced exit from the shuttle at the end of the picture. Since the alien is not an arboreal entity, it does not hang from a tree like a monkey, and since the tail is not used as a counterweight when it walks, to offset the enormous weight of its head, it can only be a tool of communication. Whether through sign language, the tail is thin enough to be twisted and entwined into a wide variety of words and letters, or sonic vibrations, it is clearly the way the alien communicates with members of its own kind. Further evidence for the tail as a method of communication comes from the fact that the mouth could never be used to this end. The alien has neither lips nor a flat tongue to form vowels and consonants. Like the mouth of a shark, the mouth of the alien is simply an eating center. The fact that the alien has no external ears is further evidence that it must communicate by sight rather than sound. This is a very interesting theory, and definitely holds some weight when you consider the moment ultimately deleted from the film, infamously known as the crab walk scene. The alien slowly makes its way towards Lambert, extending its tail. Slowly, silently. Could the alien be trying to communicate with Lambert in some way? Was it sizing her up, alternatively using some kind of senses within the tail, trying to gather more information on its prospective prey? In the final film, we also see the tail scaling up Lambert's leg, the end result of this encounter taking place off-screen. Alternative to communication, the tail could possibly have further uses. When James Cameron came aboard for the sequel, he would introduce a further aspect to the alien's abilities with its tail. Leaning into the more insectoid aspects of the Xenomorph, Cameron's idea as part of his original treatment and first draft screenplay was to have the alien deliver a paralyzing venom into its victims through the tip of the tail. While this concept doesn't exist explicitly in the final film, it did make it fairly far into pre-production. It would have been explored through the Gorman character, who spends a good portion of the middle section of the film in a coma. As we see in the final film, Gorman is knocked unconscious when heavy overhead supplies fall on him as the APC makes its escape from the alien hive. Originally, this would have played out much differently. Here's how it appears in the first draft screenplay. The armored vehicle roars backward up the ramp, slams into a massive conduit, tears free. Ripley works the shifters, pivoting the massive machine. Everybody shouting, trying to put out the fire. Pandemonium. Something lands on the roof with a metallic clang. Gorman has plastered himself against a wall, as far from the door as possible. A latch lever behind his head turns. The small hatch against which he was leaning is ripped away, and something snatches him out of the opening. He disappears to the waist with a shriek, legs kicking. The alien clings to the roof, pulling him out. Its tail whips over, scorpion-like, and buries a 4-inch stinger in Gorman's shoulder. Hicks grabs a joystick at the fire control console and turns it rapidly. On the roof, the alien looks up as servo motors whir. A remote-controlled turret cannon, a 20mm chain gun, swivels toward it in a curt arc. Vroom! The creature is blasted off the vehicle's armored back and tumbles away. Gorman, slumped unconscious, is dragged back inside. This is certainly a much more dramatic turn of events for Gorman, to have him attacked and become comatose at the hands, or tail, of a xenomorph. This seemed like an idea Cameron wanted to get right, as it existed from the earliest incarnations of the story. Interesting to note that in Cameron's original treatment, it's actually not Gorman who is attacked, but Apone. Here's an excerpt from the 1983 Alien 2 treatment. Hicks examines Apone. Under a hole punched through the body armor, he finds a single purple puncture wound. Bloodless. He seems to be alive, but paralyzed. While the original 50-page treatment is richly detailed, it of course gives only the key moments and doesn't have all the elements of the full screenplay. It would seem, however, that while Apone was alive during his initial examination, he apparently would not ultimately survive this attack. As the concept of the story was evolved, this was finely tuned to suggest that a human could, in fact, survive being affected by this venom, if they were lucky enough. This is explored in the original screenplay as well, with Gorman eventually coming to and describing it as one hell of a hangover. If the concept exists, at least semi-officially in any capacity, it is in Alan Dean Foster's novelization of the film. Commonly, novelizations are adapted from early screenplays, and this one is no exception. Here, the concept survives, and the APC attack remains as originally scripted. Curious about how these creatures work, the ability is also discussed in the same scene where the possibility of the Queen is suggested. Here's what the novelization depicts on the matter. Ripley leaned over the table on which the lieutenant was lying, studying the eye movements and wondering if he could recognize her. "How is he? I see he's got his eyes open." "That might be enough to wear him out." Bishop looked up from a nearby workbench. He was surrounded by instruments and shining medical equipment. The light of the single high-intensity lamp he was working with threw his features into a sharp relief, giving his face a macabre cast. "Is he in pain?" "Not according to his bio-readouts. They're hardly conclusive, of course. I'm sure he'll let us know as soon as he regains the use of his larynx. By the way, I've isolated the poison. Interesting stuff. It's a muscle-specific neurotoxin. Affects only the non-vital parts of the system, leaves respiratory and circulatory functions unimpaired. I wonder if the creatures instinctively adjust the dosage for different kinds of potential hosts. I'll ask one of them first chance I get." As she stared, one eyelid rose all the way before fluttering back down again. Either that was an involuntary twitch, or else he winked at me. "Is he getting better?" Bishop nodded. "The toxin seems to be metabolizing. It's powerful, but the body appears capable of breaking it down. It's starting to show up in his urine. Amazing mechanism, the human body. Adaptable. If he continues to flush the poison at a constant rate, he should wake up soon." None of this made its way into the final film nor the shooting script, but the idea could remain in at least a subtle way. After the escape from the hive, the survivors regroup, and Hudson notices that Apone and Dietrich are still alive, but with low bio-readouts. Ripley very quickly puts an end to the debate as to whether to go back to get them, as they'd most definitely be put into cocoons at this point and are beyond help. The low life signs on the readouts could have been a result of being attacked by the venomous tail and paralyzed. This would be a fitting trait to the species. We know the aliens snatch up their victims and bring them to the hive to make them hosts for further aliens. It would make enough sense that they would be capable to incapacitate these hosts to make the process all the more efficient and to prevent any kind of struggle or even possible escape. I know some fans have criticisms of the way Cameron did lean into the more bug-like nature of the alien, with the hive and the queen, perhaps demystifying this creature to an extent. But at least within the context of this film alone, it would probably fit in well enough. So why was the concept of a venomous tail eventually phased out? Maybe it could have been as simple as including such a moment with Gordon, and an action scene with the APC's turret would have been too costly on top of everything else, and the right standout moments were chosen. Maybe it was all just too much information to lay upon the audience, and everything else in the film expanded upon with the Xenomorph was sufficient. If I were to venture a guess, I think it might actually be because of Newt. The departure from LV-426 is put to a halt once Newt is captured, leaving Ripley to face the impossible and journey into the alien hive to save her. If this idea had been introduced, that the Xenomorphs puncture their prey with their tails when taking them to become hosts, we'd probably question why that didn't happen to Newt. Why would she be spared of a 4-inch stinger wound while others were not? Admittedly, it would be pretty disturbing and scary to see Ripley come across a paralyzed Newt with eyes open and twitching, but it's not exactly the best tone to set for the dramatic rescue scene. I think Cameron must have realized this during the process and ultimately decided to keep this trait ambiguous. That's my guess, at least. Maybe we could ask Jim Cameron. I really hope they get him for the Aliens Expanded documentary, which I've been talking about quite a bit on the channel lately. I'm involved, I'm trying to spread the word. So if you are interested into these kinds of deep dives into the world of aliens and exploring all of these possibilities further, definitely check some more information on the documentary. I'll have a link on the end screen and in the description below. Including and beyond aliens, though, we've certainly seen a fair amount of the Xenomorph tail in action in other ways. Namely, as a method of attack, If nothing else, the fast, sharp-edged tail can do plenty of damage when the alien finds itself up against a perceived threat. Perhaps that is fair enough, and the safest way of depicting this particular part of the alien's anatomy without complicating or contradicting too much of what we've already seen. But I do think the venom delivery could still remain a possibility. Would this be something you'd like to see depicted in further detail in a future movie? Do you think the concept is best left ambiguous? Please comment below and share your thoughts. And as always, I'd like to thank you very much for watching today. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to give it a like and be sure to subscribe to the channel to keep up with future videos. My very special thanks goes out to Brandon James, Grizz4756, Ronni Jensen, and XenoShadowMorph, Queen Tiers of the Patreon Hive. Thank you to Gregory Ford and John Griggs, the Hive's Praetorians. A very, very special thanks as always goes out to Lady Anne in the Ellen Ripley Tier of Excellence, and in the role of WEYLAND YUTANI executives, Michael Cole, Nicholas Butta, and Wesley A. Weaver Jr. And thank you all again so much for watching, and for taking all of these journeys into the mysterious world of Alien along with me. I hope to see you again for more. In the meantime, you can catch up with Alien Theory over social media. Follow @alien_theory on Twitter and @alientheoryyt on Facebook and Instagram for more. And until next time, this is Alien Theory, signing off.